Good afternoon and a warm welcome. This is Labeltv, your Pan-African International channel. Today you are watching the 7th round, a program that takes a look at issues that makes the news during the week. And during this week, as we have said, the France-Africa Summit took place in Paris, where leaders seek to boost financing in Africa to counter the devastating economic effect of the coronavirus pandemic. And with me to discuss this and many more, I have a very familiar face here, Jean-Michel Vade.
Good afternoon, Mr. Willie, and a warm welcome to our viewers.
Thank you for being here. Wayne?
Yes, a delight to partake this debate once more.
Thank you for coming. My name is Joe Willie. We will come back to discuss this and many other issues after this report.
A Paris summit on supporting African nations hard hit by COVID-19's fallout wrapped up Tuesday with sweeping calls for massive financial and vaccination support for Africa. French President Emmanuel Macron had earlier called for a new deal for Africa. Among the goals he and other leaders outlined were doubling COVID-19 vaccination target for Africa by the end of 2021 under the COVAX vaccine sharing scheme, persuading International Monetary Fund member states to triple so-called special drawing right monetary reserve for Africa to $100 billion and giving Africa the ability to produce and distribute COVID-19 shots at home. Macron said this moment could be seized to respond to broader, long-standing and so far unaddressed challenges facing Africa. He said an economic and strategic new deal with Africa would not happen overnight, but the talks had triggered a new dynamic. The same message was echoed from Senegal's President Macky Sall. He said a paradigm shift is underway in Africa's relationship with richer nations, from having programs imposed on it to co-constructing what is needed. That offers hope, he said, because Africans know their problems better than anyone. Democratic Republic of Congo President Felix Tshisekedi, who is also African Union Chair, said having African manufacture and supply COVID-19 vaccine could help overcome the reluctance among some of being inoculated with foreign shot. Tuesday's financing summit wrapped up 2 days of high-level talks on Africa.
Thank you for being there. Jean-Michel, yes. We have heard in the report, Macron said, we have taken the first step in what we have agreed to call a new deal with Africa.
Yes.
What was really a new deal?
I exactly really don't know what that president said. There are so many questions that I have that I wish I could ask him. What do we need from France right now at the post-COVID? I'm really not sure. He said that Africa has to manufacture. And he was one of the presidents criticizing Madagascar for neglecting the COVID pandemic in that big island of Africa. So I really don't know what's going on with that summit. To me, it's a dull summit. It is nothing that I can suggest Africans to go into. Definitely not out of this.
Yes. Wayne,
yes.
What is your point of view?
Currently, there is a paradox with that pandemic in the African continent. The first thing is that we are probably the continent that has been less touched by the disease. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, we are the continent who is suffering, economically speaking.
Yeah.
So the idea in organizing such a summit was to invite African countries to discuss things that may help them. And it was an invitation of France. Yeah. So if African states decided to go, it means they themselves see a need to go there. We've been provided by vaccine, we've been provided, in fact, we're kind of beggars all the time. I'm not happy and comfortable with that situation, but this is the image right now. So France has said that they can help with lobbying and bringing their support, so that's what's happening.
Yes, prior to this summit, France summit, we heard African leaders like Cyril Ramaphosa, Paul Kagame, saying Africa should come out with the vaccine to manufacture their own vaccine. And that was re-echoed during the summit. Do we really need France to tell us about that? Or
This is what I said earlier on, Mr. Willie. We don't need any speech from France to tell us what to do. We exactly as Africans know where we stand. And again, if we had any advice, to my very personal view, to take from anybody, it should be China. I mean, the disease came from Wuhan. Wuhan is free from the disease now. The whole continental China is free from the disease. The economy is back on track. Unlike France, which is still fighting with the COVID-19, which is still fighting with so many crises into the country. I want to talk about immigration and unemployment, etc. The identity of Europe itself is at stake. So I don't see what we need. I actually literally don't see the point of that summit.
Yes, because the Senegalese President Macky Sall said Africa really understand their problem. They know it better than any other.
Exactly.
But what if Africa, we as an African, do understand our problem, why can't we solve it?
Well, it's probably a matter of money. I won't say begging, but he talked about begging earlier on. But this is what it seems like. If we know our problems, first, as Africans, we need to discuss them before responding to any invitation from the Western countries. To me, it just seems like this is a health diplomacy going around COVID-19. But again, we have not been hit as they have. So I truly don't see the point. If only South Africa and Tunisia, for example, were invited to that summit, I'd probably say yes, they've been very hit, badly.
Definitely,
but a country like Ghana or Senegal, I don't see the point.
I definitely understand the point you're raising right now. And I think the idea right now in this summit, the main point was to discuss economic issues.
Yes, we are coming to
because we are really undergoing such problems.
Yes, I wanted to add, because based on what Jean-Michel said, he said it's about finance, that Africa cannot fund whatever project they want to come up. Do you agree with that? Do you think we have a problem of financial resources, that we cannot build our hospital, we cannot build better school, we cannot build infrastructure? When you take into consideration that African, even during this pandemic, some government officials are stealing huge amount of money.
The problem is systemic in Africa. We have a structural problem in the system. So this is what is to be understood first, to be fought, and to better the situation. But here we're in a situation where we first have to understand that there is a deficit created by the pandemic, because Western countries succeeded in getting adapted to this, because what they did is that they closed the economic sector, or almost. But here in Africa, we're not that used to this. And when we did this, everything went upside down.
Yes, and we do not have any plan B.
And it's difficult now to redress the balance. Now, France is proposing to help redressing the balance by lobbying. I'm not sure that we necessarily need to go and work with France. Jean-Michel was talking about China that can maybe teach lessons today, not probably France. But I really wanted to say one thing on it. Why is this summit happening in France?
Yeah.
Why do you see the Eiffel Tower right behind them while they're speaking?
Yeah.
You know, there are specific things that we need to say about France. There, they have their interest. It's like I see it like when you see a beggar in the street asking for money, you go, you give him coins, but there is a condition. You take a picture of it so that you post it and people give you credentials. Yeah. And that is what is happening, let's say, in the mind of France. I'm not saying it's totally bad, because they're looking for the interest.
Yes, so France also lobbied, if we look at from the economic angle of it, and maybe what came out of it as a beneficial to Africa, they lobbied, and the debt that Sudan owed were maybe ruled out by International Monetary Fund, which France is a big stakeholder there. So like President Kufuor-Addo of Ghana and other presidents, they were all singing of, forgiving the debt that Africans owed.
Well, this is what they say. This is what France said. Emmanuel Macron said he's going to talk to, he can't take the responsibility for himself. He's going to talk to the European Union, to China, but also to his American counterparts. I don't know how they're going to come to a deal with that, because they talked about a moratorium. So it's not the total cancellation of the debt. It's a moratorium, so it's a delay. That's one. Second, I really don't know how he's going to convince the American counterpart, because those people are involved into something else. There's disarming Afghanistan. There's the Israeli and Palestinian problem. When it comes to China, we know that they're very factual. Those people go, I mean, if they invest into something, they need something back right at the time. They're not into, I'd say, any help or whatever that stands like that. So I hope, I mean, it's a wait-and-see situation. We'll see how they're going to convince the whole European Union to go for a moratorium for the African continent.
Yes, Wen, do you have something to add?
Yes, each time we discuss about African debt, I think of Thomas Sankara's speech in the African Union saying Africa should have no debt at all.
Yes.
It's from there that we should start. And I think if they do it, it's not something, I don't know, exceptional. They have to do it.
Yes, if we talk about Africa's debt, but Macron mentioned something very important. He said, Africa's key asset is its young people. They are the most dynamic in the world, but support to the sector has never been a priority. We are talking about the economy of Africa. Then we have a dynamic youth in the world, which the government, African government, are not making a very good use of this youth.
You have almost 75% of African population under 35.
Or 35, yes.
We have a strength with this youth, so it's nonsense that today Africa is considered a beggar. I'm sorry to come again with that expression, but I have to. If it can open our eyes, I have to use it.
Yeah.
So no, it's just a pity to see this.
Yes, Jean-Michel, we are not making, because if we have a dynamic population like this, honestly, every area of investment should be productive, and that will boost the economy on the continent.
Well, like I said earlier on, this is a health diplomacy, so it's all crap talking, if I may say, or cheap talking from politicians again. I mean, in Madagascar, they came for COVID organics. They're the first one. The Western continent is the first one to go against the Malagasy president and saying that he was belittling the COVID-19. So sometimes it's like those European people want just to chaperone the African leaders without really listening to what they have to say. And it's a shame our leaders sometimes behave like beggars, like he said. Because if we have to talk about economics, 2 years ago we had a burning issue about our currency. A lot of Pan-Africanist people, we on the Pan-Africanist channel here, do not want to seize with the CFA. They want to go away, to break away with that currency. The topic is still pending. We did not reach any solution, and yet we already want the very same Africans to go and to come and, I don't know, go into debts with the European continent. It does not make sense to me. One thing I need to highlight, Mr. Willie, is that when America was colonized, it used to use the sterling pound, the pound sterling. But to gain its freedom, its economic freedom, it had to come up with the dollars. To master its ratios, to master its exchange ratios, etc. It's very important that we have a very own currency. I'm not an economics expert, but this is basic knowledge that we have to tell people that if we want to go into any debt, we need to fix our currency first. And this is an issue that we don't talk about anymore. When Nathalie Young talked about it, she was kicked out of Côte d'Ivoire. She is living now, I think, in Switzerland or Sweden. I don't know for what reason, because she standed on a very serious...
But most of these African leaders, especially in the French-speaking countries,
exactly,
do not really want to get out of the cluster of French, if I may use it.
Yes.
Because but nothing stopped a sovereign country from introducing your own currency.
Yes.
Nobody will take you, nobody will say, Gabon, why do you have Gabon currency? Or Senegal, why do you introduce your currency? But because if you look at some of these West African countries like Nigeria, they have their own Naira.
Exactly.
And then you look at Ghana, they have their own CDs,
yep.
Liberia, Liberian dollars.
And they're doing okay.
Yes, that is. So what stopped this? If we want to really get out of the cluster, is there any fears that maybe somebody is in power, you will lose the French control and something, or support or something like that?
There's still this demonization of the fact of, cutting the links with France. Basically, that's what happened here in Africa. You still have in mind what happened to Sékou Touré when he did try, and basically that's what we're going through in Africa. But, yeah, because some people did try, and I even think some other head of states had it in mind, but at the end of the day, they were just discouraged by their philosophy.
That's a strong point, if you allow me, Mr. Pendy. It's a very strong point, and this is where the African Union has to mold their links to come stronger and, yes, come up as a bloc. It's African Union. It's supposed to be a bloc, just like the European Union. We're not copycatting what they did. We have to come up as a bloc and have our own currency and deal with our very own problems so that we can face those people and talk as equals, 50-50.
Yeah.
Not just in talks, not just in words.
But what stops African Union from doing it? Because if we copy, as you said, if we copy the European model,
yes,
and we should copy what is good.
What is good, of course.
What is good, but
Indeed.
not this African Union style copy that we do not understand. Even when there is a problem in Africa, you see that African Union is silent over it. We have a lot of issues surrounding Africa in CAR, in Nigeria, in all over. So it becomes absolutely difficult for African Union to really say this is where they are.
Well, it's probably an issue of patriotism here, I'd say.
Patriotism?
Yes, of course. I mean, it's the only reason I can find. I don't have a straightforward answer to you, to what you're telling me. To me, this is what the African Union is supposed to do. Now, why don't they do so? Why don't they consolidate those African countries and come up with a single currency? There is a huge problem. I'm not going to talk about the Reserve Bank from France. I'm not here sidelining with France, or but we know they play a part. But as Africans, we need to play our part, and unfortunately, we haven't experienced it yet.
And I 100% agree with what you say, and I think the problem with African Union is also confidence. They haven't had any real big achievements which they could be proud of so far, and have the interest of Africans and the respect of Africans so far.
But
they are not strong enough.
If you say so, you now look at the organizations of the of the African Union,
and not only
because it is not an independent organization, so to say.
I bet you just one thing is, if we had Muammar Gaddafi again, things would have probably been different, like ruling this African Union. I mean, what I mean here is Africa lost this generation of Pan-Africanist, exactly.
Yeah, and you're right to say patriots.
And patriots,
Africa is our country.
Yeah, so we lost that generation, and hopefully we have a new one coming very soon, because we do need it. We do need it.
Yes. Let me make this point, because there is all what come out of the France-Africa summit, which the participant also agreed. The African continent should be able to massively produce vaccine for its own population,
of course,
via technology transfer and lifting barriers to intellectual property. That is what Macron said. Yes, let's produce our vaccine. We have said it. We have said it before. Now let's look at it from the African point of view, because Paul Kagame said it. Cyril Ramaphosa said it. So 1 year after coronavirus, what stopped Africa from producing a vaccine? Not only for maybe for corona, we also have Ebola and the rest of the
Exactly. Cholera, etc.
Yes.
We've been discussing health issues relating to the African continent here. There's no real investment in hospitals. They don't even build hospitals. How can we imagine they would invest for searching vaccines?
Yeah.
Complicated in such a continent, in such situations. It's even hard to guess this. And what I can say is that having a vaccine made in Africa would definitely be something.
Will boost our the confidence of people taking.
Because they were talking about Africano skepticism.
Yeah.
Yes, in terms of taking
the Western vaccine.
So definitely we need it here, and how to do it, I really don't know.
Yes, Jean-Michel.
I think it's a neo-colonialism health diplomacy, if you allow me to say again, because when Macron said, when Macron said that we need to develop vaccines through technologies or new ways of modern medicines, of course he means that we're going to buy stuff from there, that we're going to buy what we need, because they at some point developed, if you allow me to say so. Saying so, he literally ignores the fact that Africa has what it takes to come up with traditional stuff also, because this is something that we should not forget about. The best Chinese medicine is traditional.
Yes.
Yes, and we have this as our legacy also. But unfortunately, it's not promoted by our government. It's not promoted by our leaders. Every time you have a headache, you need to go to the drugstore. We don't know our plants anymore. This is something we need to go back to at some point. Develop something maybe as natural as possible that could work, just like the COVID organics in Madagascar. Because up to here,
do you think we as the citizens,
yes,
we always make mistake of choosing leaders, African leaders? Because if we have, as a matter of fact, choose leaders that can really say, I'm going to fix the health sector, I'm going to fix education sector, we wouldn't have had this problem. Or do we have, or do we, because we are carried away because of maybe like in certain areas, it is so tribalistic, it's so ethnic based that we have to choose because it comes from our area. So because I am looking at it from there, the African citizens make that because we have ourselves to blame for the leaders that we have, because we put them there.
Of course. Well, corruption is a problem also. Sometimes, the only times I voted, and people would say that it's my candidate who had won, he was never the one taking power, whether in a parliament house or in the state house. No, it's also, I mean, for my case, it's always been like this, and it's the case of so many Africans. So there's this problem also to take into consideration. Felix Tshisekedi said it, we need to improve better governance to ensure potential investors. But one thing he forgot is that they are Africans. The African diaspora is quite powerful also.
Yes, very, very.
Some of them just don't want to come back home because of politics. So they decide to invest there. Because every time you come back home, sometimes you will find into a bank that there is a ratio of money you need to have. Beyond that ratio, I mean, beyond that amount, you need to go for the ruling party, because you tend to be a threat. You can't have all this money. Maybe you're going to topple down the government, etc. So some people from the diaspora may just not, invest back home. It is an issue to take into consideration. China developed itself with its diaspora as well. There's Chinatown in New York, Chinatown in London, Chinatown, billions of money that goes back home from those people. So, but unfortunately, because our systems are corrupt, sustained by the very same France, which sustained things in Central Africa in all its former colonies that it keeps on sustaining, we're living the situation we're living right now.
Yes, Pendy.
We will only get out of that situation when we will have the leaders we need, the leaders we voted for. And I have to say, the elections in Africa are not that democratic, and especially in Francophone Africa. So
it's not only in the Francophone Africa. I think it is almost.
I'd say it's mainly in the Francophone Africa, at the exception of Benin.
Because you guys
at the exception of Benin and Niger except Benin, Niger, and Burkina Faso, most of the French-speaking countries are influenced.
And it's not only just, you know, the leaders, like the president. You have all the political class,
exactly,
which is too old, corrupted. How can you understand that in a continent where you have, as I said, it's 70% of the population under 33? You see leaders are 78, 90.
And
that means they don't even. That means I'm sorry. That means they don't even reflect the youth they're leading.
The youth that are leading.
Exactly.
And when you look at Emmanuel Macron, he's very young with this kind of intellectual, which we also have in Africa.
Of course.
I mean, what is really the problem that we cannot unlock our political system because we are coming to an end?
Well, I think it's greediness. That's all. Unfortunately, it's greediness. It's sad that our states leaders are intellectuals, but when they come to power, they tend to become like village chiefs. Just like Museveni, for example, if I may say in Uganda.
I have to say it's also a question of courage. You have to be courageous, bold enough, like Thomas Sankara, to come and say what you have to say, and then you just go, you undertake your responsibilities.
Okay, we are finally coming to an end to this program. France Africa Summit.
Yes.
Will it work out?
It's a dull summit. Nothing will work out. Whatever African country goes into signing anything, will do it at its expense, at its natural resources expense, as it's been from, I don't know, the 80s, for example.
Yes,
I would have expected this happens in Africa from the African Union. This happens in Paris. I just hope that at the end of the day we will gain something out of it.
Yes, I have to be one person very optimistic. It has been international politics played by France as usual, but let's hope something better can come out of, but not to impose on the African continent. And with that, we have come to the end of today's episode of the 7th round. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Willie.
Hope to see you next time for the coming. Hello, viewers. With that, that's it. Thank you for watching. Keep it with us next Sunday. See you.